Would you look at that? Look what I got on right now. Elite Sports branded apparel. Is it because I work for this podcast? Is it because I created this podcast? Yes, to all of those questions and more. It's also because this sweater saved my life in Dallas because I was so cold. Thank God I brought this in my jacket, in my bag. Super warm, super comfy. Most of all, says squaring around. So you can support the show today. Go to elitesports.com. Shop their full list of athletes, too. It's not just us on there. Use code SQUARE at checkout. Elitesports.com. Use code SQUARE. The college football playoffs have ended. And if you are not a Michigan Wolverine, you're probably not very excited with how your team ended up, especially if you're a Husky fan. I'm so sorry for you guys' loss. But you can still shop the greater lineup at Home Field. Home Field's got all the products you need. They got teams all across the country, not Texas State. But we're hoping to change that soon. So shop homefield.com. Use Square at checkout. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Squaring Around. This was an episode that I thought we were going to get into a lot of basketball talk. We had finally let football be what football was. We were just going to let the recruits roll in. And then something very interesting happened on Monday. Texas State picked up former University of Arizona quarterback Jayden de Laura from the transfer portal. And immediately the questions start going because we'll get into it later on this podcast. But there's a lot of question marks around Jayden de Laura as a player, off the field, on the field. And then everybody was like, what the hell? What about our boy TJ Finley? And then TJ Finley on Wednesday, 2 days later, essentially says, hey, I'm going to the transfer portal. And he's got his NIL marketing guy in his comments on Instagram defending his actions, saying, hey, we didn't know that they were going to pursue another quarterback like this.
Which, we'll talk about it. Let's roll the credits.
Tired of winning the tailgate, but losing the games? We can't help that. But we can tell you what the hell is up with each team and what's going on across sunny San Marcos. Texas State fans, get on your feet. You're listening to Squaring Around with Jakob Rodriguez and Andrew Zimmel.
All right, so this is like, I guess, a semi-emergency podcast, but we were just going to talk about this shit anyway. So
it's kind of like if the emergency works on your lunch break. Like it works in our schedule. We were going to record no matter what today.
Yeah.
But it just happened that this Jayden de Laura situation, the TJ Finley transfer happened like the first half of the week. Mm-hmm. Wednesday is our day where we're going to record no matter what. And it's like, hey, this is a really good time to like talk about some shit. You know what I mean?
As the little rascals would say, perfect.
Yeah, no kidding. What's not perfect is the fact that men's and women's basketball take a backseat once again. So I apologize to Coach Johnson.
Now we're mid-season in the for both teams. But to make up our mea culpa this week, officially confirmed by the athletics department, me and Zimmel will be in attendance at Strand Arena to watch the Texas State men's team take on Arkansas State, hoping that Coach Johnson and the boys can get it together with us in person.
So we'll be there if you are a fan of the podcast, if you're a Squaring Around fan.
If you're in the Cuatro Corners cartel.
And I still don't like that name, but that's fine. If you see us or if you want to see us, that is the way to do it. So we will be there. I want to do more of these things, Jacob. Again, we need to talk football, but I want to do more of these things where we are in the wild and we can interact with fans, because I had a ton of fun at the bowl game and I want to do more stuff like that where people who like the podcast, who support the podcast, we can get together, we can chop it up, we can talk Bobcat sports because we haven't had that for the majority of the time that Texas State has been around. It's mostly been like one or two beat writers, but now we have like a legitimate platform. And if you have Texas State takes that you don't feel comfortable tweeting at us, this is the way to do it. We'll be at the basketball game this Saturday. It's going to be a good game, and hopefully the men's team gets the job done. But I wanted to put that at the beginning of the podcast because I think it's really important that the Squaring Around crew, your cartel, we can all get together.
Yeah, you and I are actually writing semi-regularly. I'm actually writing the game recap for this game too. So
writing semi.
Look for me on Dave Campbell's.
For you, yeah, for sure. My fingers stopped working in 2020.
That's funny. Okay, So let's just dive in here, buddy, because there's no easy way to start this, right? It's kind of like a big who said what situation or what in what order did all of this happen? And I'm not talking about Jayden de Laura. I'm talking about GJ Kinney and TJ Finley because obviously, and some of you have speculated rightly or wrongly so online, like, okay, well, this is because TJ took so long to tell Texas State what was going to happen. So GJ Kinney, one of the best recruiters in the country, decided to take preemptive action and sign a kid, or at least get in the early stages of signing a kid before all this happened, right? You guys will remember a week before, 2 weeks before the bowl game, still kind of up in the air what was going on with TJ Finley.
We
And
talked about it in the pod. We
even at the
said like,
bowl
hey,
game itself, we didn't know what was going to happen. So
we did not know all the way up into the bowl game if he was even going to play. Like the week of the bowl game is really when we got confirmation, if I remember correctly. Now maybe my timeline's a little mixed up here, but I remember doing our preview pod being like, I need to know one way or the other. If you're out, you're out. If you're in, you're in. I just need to know. And I don't think a lot of people had that same take as me. I think more people were very much okay with him deciding what he was going to do in the moment. I need to know as a fan, also as a media member, but mostly as a fan, where my quarterback is. And to lose TJ Finley yesterday when all this news kind of broke, Tuesday when all this news kind of broke, I was very upset. I did not MF the guy. I would never MF TJ Finley, but I was a little upset because we went from having arguably one of the best quarterback rooms in the Southeast, not the conference, just in the region, the geographical region, to now having another run-of-the-mill quarterback room. I would argue a little bit worse without TJ Finley. So I was very upset about that. I understand he's going to chase his money. I want to talk about a quarterback expert that I reached out to as the podcast goes on. But I'll say my initial reaction was I was very upset, Jacob.
I was mostly upset for Malik Hornsby, who's just made a position change and a school change, and he may not have even had to. So that sucks. Now he's at Arkansas State, Jonesboro, going, hey, what the fuck?
Well, and it goes back to the conversation that I've had in my buildings. You've probably had them in your buildings as well, working in media.
Mm-hmm.
We all work in media, and communication is one of the worst things that people do. Like, they don't find a way to communicate with their co-workers, with their management, and it's always like a joke, like, we work in media, but nobody can talk. You're all in the same fucking building. You're all together all the time. It's been argued a fraternity, a family, and you can't say what's happening. Now, I understand money's involved, which always makes the situation a little bit messier, right? Like, NIL money is involved now, scholarship money is involved now. It makes the conversation a little bit tougher. But you're telling me that Malik, GJ, Leftwich, and TJ Finley didn't all get together at some point after that bowl game and figure out, where do we go from here? What's the plan moving forward? Nobody had that.
It's all those behind the scenes things that we'll never know truly, right? Because GJ will have a national signing presser or whenever the class is finalized at some point, and he'll get on his soapbox and say, hey, I have the best class we could have gotten for whatever, right? And he'll hit us with all those coaching quisms and stuff. And that's great. But we'll never truly know the truth, and we could reach out to TJ and he'll give us his side of the story. And it's kind of a whole mess because none of us were really there when it happened.
Yeah. And that's another thing that's kind of frustrating me. And I want to kind of go down the order of the way that things need to work here. But the take that frustrates me the most, and I think that it's true, is that the conversation that we've had off air and that we've heard off air is that GJ Kinney wants to stay at Texas State to build a resume. That, like, it doesn't want to be one and done, one and done, one and done. Now, I would argue that does not matter. That if an athletic director thinks a coach is good enough to take control of a program, a Power 5 program in particular, that it does not matter if it's one and done at 50 schools. What matters is, can he get the job done at my school? Can he make my football team good? That is what matters most. I do think that this is a case of a young coach making a rash decision potentially. Which, let's go back to the original topic, the order of events. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it GJ Kinney saying to TJ, hey, you just won a bowl game for me, but I cannot guarantee you the starting quarterback spot come fall? Or was it TJ Finley saying, hey, Power 5 schools have money coming my way. I need to go get this money. I got twins. I'm essentially an adult playing a kid's sport at this point. Like, I need to go secure the bag. Which comes first? I'm inclined to believe that it's the latter. I'm inclined to believe that TJ Finley, the bag was finally big enough for him to say, okay, I need to go get this money. Now we'll see, right?
And it's worth noting, too, that TJ Finley, for all intents and purposes, is still an athlete at Texas State. His name is just in the transfer portal, so he hasn't made an official move yet. But we're assured that those moves are coming. And his agent, also reported by Kef, but his agent, if you just log on to TJ's Instagram, is going, hey, we did not know that Texas State was going after de Laura or any quarterback.
I think is bullshit. I think that this is 100% 2024 cleanup crew style, because you cannot be a quarterback, let alone a college athlete, and not think that there is another guy behind you. We got rid of that. We used to have the situation where, like, oh yeah, maybe a coach will go out and recruit a kid for your position. But the idea was always, we're going to redshirt him, he'll sit a year, right? Like, even the best players in college sports 20 years ago redshirted, sat a year. Now that's not the case. That is not the case. Because there's money involved, because the stakes are no longer scholarships. The stakes are now millions of dollars, thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. Now it's no longer a kid's game. This is an adult game. This is what everybody wanted. Everybody wanted the players to get paid. This is the result of that. There's no way that TJ Finley and his NIL agent did not know that Kenny was going to go try to go get another guy. There's no possible way that they didn't know that.
Yeah. And you guys will remember, right? The Bobcat faithful will remember that it wasn't this time last year because it was in the summer when TJ Finley was signed, but that was a major bombshell across the league. Like, whoa, what the hell? I thought Texas State had their guy already, right? Remember, I went out to spring practice. We went to the spring game.
We thought it was Malik. We thought it was Malik the whole time.
Exactly. And then this stuff just happens because that's kind of the nature of the beast that we're in. Or GJ Kinney was like, hey, there's a deficit in the quarterback room right now, and we need to fill it because Malik is gone and TJ Finley needs some competition so we can come back hungry next time around. The fact of the matter is we recruited Jayden de Laura, who has some headlines behind him, not positive always in nature. You were talking about the on the field stuff. You know his quarterback resume pretty well.
I want to start there.
Okay.
This is where we do the in bold letters across the podcast, across the video. I want second chances. Dudes deserve second chances. I'm not saying that they don't. So let's get that out of the way first. That dudes deserve, people make mistakes all the time. You and I both can attest. We both have things in our past, in our friends' past, in our family's past, that people got to work through shit. That things happen. You take the L, you learn, you move forward. That is the disclaimer here.
Yeah. And this is a pro player podcast, and we're not looking to take anybody's careers away from them ever. But these are the facts of the matter here.
These are the facts of the matter. And if you are like me, and I've had to root for some scumbags, there has been some things, like, I'm a Vikings fan. We talked about it on the podcast before. Adrian Peterson whipping his kids with a stick, not exactly the highlight of my Vikings fandom. But I wear the jersey. It's ugly. It's disgusting. I don't love it. I do a TCU podcast. I got to talk about Kendall Briles every other day during the football season. I'm not exactly thrilled by Kendall Briles. And I find that Jayden de Laura is going to be in that bucket where it's going to, and look, I'll stop and you start. Let's go through the headlines of the two plays.
The most, I guess, like headline that doesn't matter anymore is that he got a DUI in college or was charged with a DUI. That case ended up being dismissed. That was at Washington State University. Thank God nobody was killed. Jayden de Laura is obviously able to walk and everything again like that again, right? But it was a major kind of kerfuffle that went over and stuff.
And how old was he? He was 21. What year was it, Jacob? Do you remember?
Hang on. I have this searched up right now. Yeah, he was found not guilty in 2021. But this whole event happened in, oh, come on, where is this? In 2020. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Fairly.
That was his
Yes,
freshman. That was his freshman year at Washington State.
Mhm.
So I do not think he was 21 at the time.
All right. So let's talk about the real nasty one that everybody talks about. And it's actually a case that is still ongoing, and I'll explain. So, Zimmel, if at any point during this long lecture, because this is just a series of like little paragraphs from different publications that have clarified this situation for me, let me know and I'll address any questions that you may have.
So he was 19 when he got the DUI.
Okay. A woman alleged that the University of Arizona quarterback, Jayden de Laura, and University of Wisconsin safety, Kamoi, sexually assaulted her in 2018 when all of them were juveniles, and the two football players attended St. Louis High School in Hawaii. That's where Jayden de Laura is from. That's where the other guy's from Wisconsin, right? And so basically those allegations came out in 2021 as this guy was dealing with a DWI. You guys will remember from the last story that we just talked about. Allegedly, the assault happened after a football game when the girl brought over a celebratory lei for the team. That's the plural version of lei, by the way. And that's when allegedly the girl received a text from de Laura telling her to come to the stairwell. And then from there, according to court documents, the complainant, the woman, says that the victim basically, or de Laura demanded to know where she was, got her to the stairwell, and then that's where the assault happened, right? Important to note here, right? These guys were juveniles at the time. I think Jayden was probably 17, if I'm not mistaken, and the girl was 16. So in juvenile court, there's no guilty verdict or a plea. So when you hear coaches say like, oh, he never pled guilty, or he was never charged with a crime, or never found guilty of any crimes, it's like true and also untrue at the time, because that's just not the thing.
In juvenile court, there is no guilty verdict or plea. They use different terms. That issue is causing controversy and not sitting well with the player's legal team.
Basically, de Laura and the other dude, Latu Kamoi, were prosecuted and they accepted responsibility in the juvenile court system. And all those details are like sealed. But basically, they wanted to just enter like a not guilty plea or anything. And basically in juvenile court, like your cases get dismissed. And then the way that they did it was a settlement amount, right? So, which is why I had a problem when Jeff Fish, the head coach of Arizona, was like, we can live off that he never committed a crime or was never found guilty of a crime.
I can certainly address what I'm allowed to address when it comes to this. Legally, there's not much that I can say, but I can tell you that the university, our football program, and I were all made aware of a juvenile and civil action that was brought against Jayden September of last season. We were not able to get much information. We did as much due diligence as humanly possible. And what we learned was that Jayden never pled guilty or was never found guilty of any crimes. And really, for us, that's what we could live off of. And that's what we could understand, that we can't make decisions, or it would be unfair to make decisions based upon information we don't have. And there is no information. There won't be any information that is available under Hawaii law. Everything's sealed and expunged. So there really is nothing for us to learn.
Either way, he was involved in some manner, and technically he's wrong. Like he was, you know what I'm saying? There's like a kind of a paradox going on here.
The first complaint in the civil case was filed in December 2021. It says the defendants were charged with and eventually pled guilty to sex assault too. An amended complaint was filed 10 months later, August 2022. Again, describing a guilty plea. A second amended complaint followed on November 2022 with the same wording. A third in March, and a pretrial statement from earlier this month after a settlement was reached between the boys and the victim maintains the defendants pleaded guilty. Juvenile records are sealed, so we cannot independently confirm the language, but legal experts who were not involved with this case say the terms used in juvenile court proceedings are different from adult criminal cases.
And what's interesting about this, because you mentioned his previous stop in Arizona, what's interesting about this is that we see this happen a lot, where one coach will take a risk on a guy, and then another coach can say, well, it wasn't our I'm not the one that's having to take him off of this thing. Does that make sense?
Like, we're the good guys. We did our due diligence. We searched the internet. We didn't find anything. We've done everything we could. Our hands are clean of this.
Example, Sonny Dykes at TCU with Kendall Briles. Now, I would argue that the Kendall Briles situation is a lot messier, a lot more complex than this one. This one feels very cut and dry. This very much feels like a dude does a bad thing, gets caught, suffers consequences, kind of. Now, it's a two-parter, right?
Mhm.
Because on one level, there's going to be people, and I've already seen some people. Hey, what's wrong? He did the crime.
Or he didn't. That's what
in
they say too.
quotations. I'm
He
saying,
wasn't
like,
guilty. He didn't plead guilty. He wasn't found guilty.
he did the quote crime, and he suffered the quote consequences. He had the settlement. It's done. It's in the past. Then there's another group of people. There's another group of people who would argue that I don't want somebody like that on my football team. And there is a contingency of people who have already reached out to me and said, "Isn't this what Everett Withers sacrificed his life, his coaching life, essentially for?" Because Everett Withers came to Texas State as a head coach from JMU, and then now
no drug dealers, no people who have beat women. No, he ran a very clean program.
He really tried to quote turn the ship around when it came to a lot of these cultural things, and there was a conversation. Maybe now again, this is one player who has not one baggage, but one player with baggage that GJ Kenny has recruited. For the most part, it's been a pretty clean operation going on.
Yeah.
Some might say, though, is this the first crack in the foundation?
And so
right? What's the culture look like in 5 years?
Let me continue, because this is where things get a little hairy, right? And this is why maybe some of those headlines were a little bit more fresh, because there is something that happened this month in that case that people were like, oh, so like all like the Hawaii outlets and Arizona outlets picked up this story again because duh, And so now all these Texas outlets are going to do the same thing, right?
Yes.
So the lawsuit I mentioned was filed in 2021, and the court records show that an undisclosed settlement was reached between the two players, the parents, and the woman in early 2023. The settlement itself was deemed too low from de Laura, the other guy, and their parents, now that the players' incomes have grown substantially because they are allowed to earn money as college athletes from their names, images, and likeness. That's the whole NIL ruling. So they basically said whatever settlement they reached before, it's not reached in good faith. Essentially, there's a law in all 50 states that deems that the juvenile court and the proceedings that go towards it, like, it's for the victims, basically. And it's beyond the court's like responsibility to ensure that there's like fair play going on. And so they didn't think that the settlement would reach in good faith, because these guys went on to essentially become, I don't know, half millionaires or something, like whatever. Like, they made a lot of money.
They make thousands of dollars. To make
thousands of dollars. Correct. Yeah. And let's say if one of them went to the league, millions of dollars, right? So basically the judge rejected that settlement amount. And the reason that they're not going to trial is because both of the players are trying to put this behind them, and the woman is also working out of state. So it's just inconvenient for all parties involved, basically. And if you go to trial, like, obviously there's some things that you don't want to be unsealed, because you go from juvenile court, and then let's say we take this to criminal trial. Like, there's a lot of things that'll just get hairy very fast.
I would like to correct something that you just said here about it being inconvenient for the victim. I think that there is an inconvenience of also being assaulted and having to go through this whole proceeding over and over and over again and relive this. I think that is an inconvenience as well.
Yeah, that's the major
situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just want to clean that up for us.
Yes. And basically, trial would force all of them to return and could expose graphic details that would otherwise be kept secret in mediations. So a mediation hearing is literally planned sometime this month, or if not this month, it'll be, postponed to 2024. This will be like a Zoom hearing. And so Texas State fans, if you think this story is going away, it's actually never going to go away.
Talks continue between the attorneys for St. Louis School, two former football players, and a woman who sued them. The parties have already spent multiple sessions with a mediator.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, yeah. And this leads us to the question, how much of an upgrade is this?
Yeah, and how do we feel about it overall?
Well, because this is where I want to go with it. So this is his third team since joining college, since going in college football, right? His freshman year, he only plays 4 games at Washington State. That's in 2020. That was a 4-game season, I believe, for the Pac-12. I don't think the Pac-12 played many games just in general in 2020. 2021, he was a starter, had a decent season, 23 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Washington State that season, I don't think was 500. They were 7-6. So 2022, he transfers to Arizona, plays 12 games, 25 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Solid numbers. Arizona that season, again, I don't think that they were very good. 5-7. Right. This season, he gets benched in Arizona's best season in however many years. I think they were top 10 in the country. He played 7 games, 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. His lowest quarterback rating, I think it's his lowest quarterback rating, 1,200 yards. His career at Arizona, 4,800 yards, 35 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. I don't think that this guy's that much better than TJ Finley. Like, I understand, I saw tweets from some of our friends talking about how GJ Kinney and Mac Leftwich won a mobile quarterback, but they won a bowl game and they almost won the West with a quarterback who moves like a statue. TJ Finley, not exactly the most mobile quarterback we've ever seen, but they were able to kind of make the offense work with a guy who wasn't super mobile. And the mobile quarterback that they had, they used as a running back. Malik Hornsby threw how many passes this year? I probably can count on one hand the amount of times that I saw him play multiple snaps at the quarterback position in situations where he could like actually play quarterback, right? I think maybe 2 games where he didn't play quarterback in situations that were blowouts. So why is this the guy?
Yeah.
There are so many guys. There's 50 states. Let's say every state on average gives you between 10 and 12, 10 and 15 Division I quarterbacks. That's Division I from Group of 5 to Power 5. Let's say everyone gives you between 10 and 15, right? So you're looking at something like 400 quarterbacks, 15 times 50. What is that? 750 Division I quarterbacks, maybe every like year. And then they got to go to, because there's not 750 schools, they got to go to Division II schools, Division III schools, FCS schools, junior colleges. There's a shit ton of dudes who can play the quarterback position every year. And this is the guy.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the thing that is like really upsetting to fans, is that this isn't Baker Mayfield. This isn't like Kyler Murray. This isn't Joe Burrow. Like the guys that you see on Sundays that are transfer quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, guys you watch on Sundays who are transfer quarterbacks who are playing in the league, who went to different colleges. This is a guy who is going to be maybe playing in the USFL. What? This is the guy we're staking our reputation on? Like, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in 10 months we're talking like, holy shit, I can't believe this guy is a leader in the pack for Conference Player of the Year in Texas State, a 2-loss team going into the final week, and we're winning the West and we're winning the Sun Belt in year 2 under GJ. Maybe that's the case, but this is the guy. Like that's the part that makes me feel icky. It's like, this is the guy, and now we can talk fans, what the fan reaction is, because this is the most interacted with tweet I think we've had, right?
Oh yeah, like we there's a poll I want to say at the end of every episode on Spotify if you guys want to ever play around, but nobody uses it, so whatever. But our Twitter, aka X, is popping lately. We got all our Cuatro Corners family, so we put it out to our viewers. How do you feel about this situation? In our very unofficial, not so scientific poll for the Squarin around research purposes only. How do you feel about TJ hopping in the portal and Texas State bringing in Jayden de Laura in, and why? We got over 400 votes, excuse me. The options were good, bad, icky, and questionable. Questionable in the lead, 39%, followed closely by icky, 27%, good, 20%, and bad, 12%.
So most people either feel icky or confused. Is that what I'm getting?
Icky or questionable, yes.
Okay.
And then the third one was
I
good.
think that bad should be. I think bad should have gotten more votes.
I think so too. But personally, I did vote for Icky. So
Am I to understand that of the people who voted in this poll, that icky is to mean that they are not okay with the situation, but they can come around to it?
I think this is my rationale for voting Icky. Like, I feel gross that we did that,
Yeah.
Because there's nothing I can control. I can't control who Texas State recruits. I can only feel some type of way about it. And it looks as if Jayden wants to turn his life around. Everybody does, right? Uh, that doesn't excuse any of his actions, though. And it does, I feel like for me as a writer, dim his shine because now that's all anybody's want to talk about. Now the University Star's got an article about it. Everybody's got to address it in every paragraph. Jayden de Laura also involved in this case somehow. And then, it just becomes part of the story.
Now, what if, okay, because I know there's going to be some Twitter fans who are going to say, why does it have to be addressed all the time? Why? And Mr. Journalist, Jakob the journalist here, why is it necessary for you to mention it when you write about de Laura going forward?
I think it's the same reason you would write about like that TJ Finley was the season like passing leader, like if TJ Finley had a DUI, we would write about that too. But because this is like part of de Laura's story that is now eclipsed like what, 3 teams, I guess, that he's been on: Washington State, Arizona, and then over here. And also the case is still ongoing. Like it's just now reached a point to where they need to go into like mediation again and go, hey, how much money should this woman get from these 2 players now? This is like what, this happened in 2018, right? 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 6 years to get some semblance of justice? Yeah, I think that's worth a paragraph from me, asshole.
I'm just going out here playing the other side, just asking questions that I think
No, and people ask us that all the time. Like, why does it always have to be negative? Why can't you just write about the game? Because, man, there's a difference between the game and the game behind the scenes. This is the game behind the scenes that we're trying to cover in real time.
Game of life, man. No, and look, maybe you're right. Maybe he is trying to turn his life around, and maybe he is like a great guy.
Well, earnestly, I hope so, right? Like, you can only hope he is, because if he wasn't, we just recruited some supervillain, then what the fuck?
TJ Finley, not on another team. It's just in the transfer portal.
Correct.
Could come back.
Could come back.
He's not going to come back. I don't think so.
So let's put it to what our fans said, Sim, and we can read a few of these, and I'll put a lot of them up on our deal. First guy to comment, Robert Garcia. I'm on the fence. What TJ was able to lead to us to was fantastic. He had some really good games, but he also had some stinker games. State, UTSA, Coastal come to mind first. I want him to stay, but if I don't think de Laura will fill his role well. Also, kind of ignoring the bigger picture there. I guess I agree. He kind of said what you said. Like, is this the guy? Like headline excluding. Is this the guy?
I just look at it and I say to myself, like, guy got benched to Arizona. Mobile quarterback, sure, but like this is the guy we're staking our position on. And these tweets, but I want to finish with Finley. Can we do that? Because his stuff pissed me off yesterday.
his announcement.
His announcement pissed me off.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll read a couple more. Our guy Hef. People should feel good about it. We aren't settling for anything but the best. People can preach about loyalty all they want, but TJ waited until last week to say he was coming back. Should we have just sat and waited around? I suppose. I don't know. It's big like TJ GJ said situation,
Here's the thing. Like if we are playing the game of are we upset that TJ Finley left? I'm not necessarily upset that TJ Finley left. Like I'm happy for him. I thought the way that he went about it was incorrect, but like I'm not upset about that. What I'm upset about is who we replaced him with preemptively. Like that's the thing that I'm upset about. I'm not upset that he left. Like shout out to him for leaving. Go get the bag. But I'm upset that like.
And you could argue, I guess, like we were going into a bowl game, do you want your starting quarterback to announce that shit before a bowl game or whatever, you know?
No, but there was a lot of time between December 26th and 2 days ago.
Correct. Yeah.
I said that if he wanted, and I stand by this, if we win that bowl game, when we win that game, bowl game,
Mhm.
on that was what, a Tuesday? On Wednesday, if he had put out a I'm leaving, great. Congrats. Like that's great. But what I don't like is what I don't like is we get this guy on Monday, we get de Laura on Monday, and on Tuesday, business is business.
Yeah, Texas State, thank you for everything. Business is business was the
I
quote.
had such a problem with that, man. And it's not the him getting paid. I don't that's I'm glad the guys are
Oh
getting
yeah.
paid.
Peace and blessings
I
to him and his family and the
yeah.
pursuit of football and happiness.
The business is business thing just drove me up the fucking wall because I like college football. And maybe I'm an old curmudgeon. I like college football the way I like college football. And that's not to say I don't want guys to get paid. I want guys to get paid. But to be like business is business, brother, like what are we doing here?
Also,
You know?
maybe it's some inherent bias that I have for my beloved university, but if somebody paid me to work out and hang out in beautiful sunny San Marcos for 4 to 5 years, I would take that every day, man.
So I reached out to our quarterback expert,
Okay.
Brady McBride. I said, help me
You're,
understand
you're
that.
divulging your source?
Yes. I said, help me understand the TJ Finley news. It just can't be NIL, right? And he said, I would assume he didn't like the move a couple days ago. So business is business, but I think that has two meanings. And this is where we agree.
So
TJ Finley and I agree.
Is this scared money don't make money though? Like, do you think TJ Finley was afraid of the competition, perhaps?
No,
Because I've seen
God,
that
no.
comment too, you know.
No.
But I think honestly, like, you could look at the fucking film from this year. TJ Finley was lights out. Jayden de Laura did what? Sit on the sidelines. There's a reason he didn't come back.
TJ Finley was arguably the best quarterback in 2/3 of the games this year, which I think most quarterbacks in the Sun Belt cannot say. He's not scared of the competition. He was in an SEC school. You don't go to an SEC school if you're scared of the competition. Like, what are we talking about? That's insane. He's not scared of the competition. No, I think the business is business thing pissed me off yesterday because he was
And you're
talking
standing
money.
on business now.
I thought it. Yes, I thought he was. I think he was talking about money. I think that maybe there's more to it. I think that there's maybe more to it. I just don't, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I don't buy that he did not know that they were going to recruit another quarterback. You were the other quarterback. It kind of goes back to a conversation Jakob and I have had multiple times about cheating, right? Like if you get with somebody and she is cheating on her boyfriend to get with you, she will cheat on you with someone else.
Correct.
That's just how it works. TJ Finley came to Texas State when they had QB1 under center Malik Hornsby. He came during the summer. He became QB1. You think that Texas State wasn't going to add another quarterback? Like, don't act like we're shocked here. I think that it comes back to we win a bowl game, Hawkins leaves. Other players leave. The team will be different from last year to this year. It's going to be a completely new roster for the most part. There's not going to be a ton of holdovers. You look at that if you're TJ Finley and you go like, this is going to be a lot harder. I think that the addition of a quarterback that has a lot of baggage, like it's one thing if we bring in, a guy who was on like, let's say a 2-year mission trip and we bring him in to be like the quarterback. And you're like, okay, you know what? Clean slate, whatever. He was, feeding people in Uganda, right?
Which is funny you mentioned that because that's what BYU deals with every year.
Right.
Guys come back from mission trips.
If that's the case, like, okay, I can't. But you're replacing me with you potentially want to replace me with this guy
connected to all these things. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it just like we had a quarterback room, right? TJ Finley, aside the point, right? Let's say TJ Finley this week still did what he did. Business is business, and he left anyway. We still have PJ Hatter. We signed one of the best guys in San Antonio, Brad Jackson, and GJ Kinney was behind center for the practice team. So surely we're going to find a quarterback at some point, or maybe we would have just stolen Malik back from Arkansas State, who would have just gone in and out of the portal and then gone back to Texas State. I don't know. Who's to say? We still had a very good room, though. No? Like, do we have to put the panic button and then go after, like, you were talking about how there was some Sith energy, right? From GJ Kinney. Like, we're going to be the best, and maybe we're going to recruit the best players, even though they have stories that are attached to them.
Well, and this is another thing, right? Like, are we working on, are we trying to turn an A into an A plus?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if we are, like, I think most college football fans, Texas State included, want their coach to put all the effort in. They want the 110%. We're going all in to make this team as good as possible. But at what cost? Right? At what cost? And end of the day, this is I hate to say this because there's a victim involved, but this is a blip on the college football radar. And for Texas State, for a team that has been so adrift as a football program for so many years, to have this type of success that they had in 2023, you think that I would imagine that most fans by August are going to put this in the rearview mirror and just completely dust over it.
Yeah,
but
or when that adjudication comes out, they're going to be like, all right, settlement's done. Checks cleared. We're going to play football.
But I think to this, and if you disagree with me, you disagree with me. I think to the photos that I saw this year of all of the families at these games, and I think about all the kids, and I think about the photos that I've seen from the coaches posting their daughters and stuff like that. And I'm not trying to get here on a soapbox and be like, Mr.
I'll get on it, man. This is important.
But I just think to myself, like, and with the culture that Texas State is building, I don't know de Laura. You don't know de Laura. We don't know. We personally do not know him. We have no connection to this guy. I'm hoping that he proves us wrong, that there is at least some sort of comment from him, either after the adjudication is completely done or before the spring game or the first media availability, where he says something to the effect of, like, hey, I made mistakes in my past, but I've grown from them. Hey, things happen in my past, but I'm a human. Things happen. We're trying to be better every day, or something like that.
Yeah, and he addressed it too at Pac-12 Media Days this past year, but because of the nature of the case itself, he's not at liberty to speak on it. So,
And here's the other thing, Jake, is that, like, if you took the most recent controversy and you were able to magic erase it away, you still have a DUI that I'm not exactly thrilled with at 19. I'm not, and look, backwards hack guy, we could talk about that, right? We could say, like, oh, do we want a quarterback that is making bad off the field decisions? There's an entire conversation to be had in that arena. But I just feel like you go back to you feel icky. You feel like this is kind of gross.
That's why I voted the way I did too, because as I was saying, we had a quarterback room with zero controversy. The biggest question mark against that was, is TJ Finley good at football? Is he okay? Can we do this? Can he become a preeminent quarterback in this league? And he proved everybody, right? And that was a great on the field narrative to have. This is not. And that's why it makes me feel icky. And you think about Texas State's own troubles with reporting sexual assault on its own campuses, which, me and other reporters were a part of reporting. The whole situation makes me feel icky, because it's like, wait, what the fuck? We're not even 5 years removed from Texas State's biggest qualms in that department too. So it is sort of like, oh, football gets good, and now we can kind of just erase kind of history for a second.
Well, there's a saying that my dad had, and it was, if you make all the easy plays and half the hard plays, you're a Hall of Famer, right? If you make all the easy plays and half the hard plays, you're a Hall of Famer. And this feels like an easy play. This feels like an unforced error by Texas State in that department, that you didn't need to go and do this. Now, again, we've said it a couple times on the podcast. I want to reiterate. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe this is a
Maybe we're
guy.
wrong. Maybe hopefully we're completely wrong.
Maybe this is a guy who turns into Mother Teresa, and that this was just a miscommunication type of thing. And all of this is just one big kerfuffle, and it's all a mistake, and everything is hunky dory, and we move forward, and there's no problems. I tend to believe that that's not going to be the case, but maybe it is. And maybe we're completely wrong, and this guy turns into prime Johnny Manziel mixed with prime Jameis Winston, and we're talking Heisman Trophy for Texas State for the first time ever. I don't think that that's going to happen either. I think what we have a situation here is that arguably the greatest single-season quarterback play, at least in the FBS era for Texas State, leaves maybe for the money, maybe edged out a little bit by decisions that the coaching staff makes. And this is the last piece of the puzzle here, because we mentioned GJ Kenny not wanting to be a one and done, which I don't believe that report for a minute. I don't think that that's the case. I think that if GJ Kenny wants to go somewhere else, get a better agent.
This was reported by David Schultz, right? He runs the Sunbelt Locked On podcast stuff. And Kef, under his tweet, was saying that GJ was reportedly getting negatively recruited for positions, coaching spots, basically, because he had gone 1 year at UIW, and then reportedly he was in the mix at Texas State after his very successful year here. And so that's the narrative now he wants to change, and that's why, that contract.
I don't buy that. Now. You know why I don't buy that? Because if you actually were in the let's build a program, let's stick around, you don't make a move like this. Mm-hmm. This is a win now move. Yeah. You don't make a move like this. You don't turn into transfer you don't bring in 50 transfers to try to win in year one. You go after high school recruits, you go after JUCO recruits, and you try to build a program over 4 years. But this is what I call microwave football. You bring in a bunch of recruits, you bring in a bunch of guys, you have a good culture, you have a strong culture from UIW, you're not worried about that. You get these guys that play complementary roles, you win immediately. You bring in a guy like this, you're hoping for 10 wins, is all I'm saying.
I got to be honest, it feels like kind of like a year one move versus a year two, right? Like year two, especially considering the season we're just coming off of now.
We like GJ Kenny.
Yes.
We both are very big fans. We like Leftwich. We like the coaching staff. We like Don. We like Dampus. We've talked to all these guys.
Ad nauseum.
This is a move that a coach who has more cachet can make. This is and look, I do not want to bring up Jeff Traylor. I try not to bring up Jeff Traylor. This is a move that if Jeff Traylor does at UTSA, people can get behind, because he has built a culture.
No.
I think so, because he's built a culture, because he's won a bowl game, because he took this team from being a little bit, and he has built-in grace with the fan base and built-in grace with college football, because you did it. I'm not going to say he did it the right way, but he did it in a way that people think is the right way. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to build a program. I think he did it the way that most people would say was the correct way to do it.
And you feel that way too because of his very high school connections, and that's kind of how he's built his program. It's like a high school that competes on the highest level. Like he's integrating a lot of those same cultural attributes into the system itself.
And what does every Texas high school football team have is a family. They have like the family banner, and it feels like that. This is a move that Butch Jones makes at Arkansas State.
Yeah.
This is a move that Tim Beck would make at Coastal Carolina, because they're trying to get that next job. Because it's not you sign a 4-year contract, sure, but you do that so that your kids can go to a school in the area and not have to worry about, quote, moving. But if a better job opens up, any one of these guys is going to take it. Mm-hmm. This is very much a move that a guy who wants to go to the next level would make. Because if you win the Sun Belt this year, if you're GJ Kenny, which I would make a case that I think that they're the favorites in the West, even with TJ Finley leaving, even with de Laura coming in and not knowing if that's going to work or not, right? A very big question mark. I would say that they're probably still the favorites in the West, if not the second favorite. And I would argue that there may be a top 3 team in the Sun Belt, just in the preseason. You win 10 games and you win your bowl game, and you're gone if you're GJ Kenny. You're gone. You're going somewhere else. You're getting a bigger payday. You might bring a coach along with you if Mac Leftwich is lucky. This is not a move that somebody who is like, oh, I can't wait to watch my kids graduate from San Marcos High makes.
Yeah, this feels like very Assassin's Creed. Like there's too many mercenaries now. Like, like we're in the portal, we're gonna find a short-term fix to this situation. But it's like, don't we have two guys that are pretty good? Wait, this feels like a Tyler Vitt situation, Like, are we ever gonna get to see the potential of PJ Hatter? Are we ever gonna get to see the potential of Brad Jackson? Or these freshmen that we recruited? I think it was like 10, 13 freshmen, something like that in this class.
That'll be really interesting. That'll be really interesting in 2025 because that will be when if Texas State goes in the transfer portal after this year, then we're going to be talking about the lack of development from this coaching staff. Like, could they not develop players?
And we can recruit the hell out of them, but
Spavital was, hold on, recruit the hell out of players we don't ever see. What do we know?
No, yeah, exactly.
You don't know. Spavital was really bad at, I don't want to say really bad, but he was not, his strength was not development. The guys that came to Texas State in the Spavital era kind of plateaued. They kind of were like, this is how good they're going to be, and this is the ceiling, and we knew immediately. You would like to think that with Kenny and his coaching staff, that the ceiling for all these guys is raised a little bit. Like we see with Joey Hobart, right? Like Joey Hobart's ceiling was one thing, and I think over the season it was raised.
FCS transfer to second leading receiver on the team.
Cole Wilson, another one.
Hawkins.
Cole
Wilson's crazy.
Well, another one where like you could see that the progression of him over the year got better.
Yeah.
So
it just feels like there's not like with all these transfers, and I guess I could have said this last year, right? When we had 50 plus newcomers to the team. But now with this Jayden de Laura move, it's like, is he a Bobcat? Like is anybody a Bobcat? What's going on here? I don't know. I want more homegrown talent, I guess.
Let me ask you, TJ Finley, in 10 years, he comes back for alumni day with his kids, his twins. What is the reaction?
It's not for a Hall of Honor thing, I think. I don't think he gets into the Hall of Honor with just one season. That'd be crazy. I don't know. I think everybody would be glad to see him. I think everybody at the end of the day understands that this is a business, right? Especially now, this is a business. You got to look out for yourself. He's got 2 kids. He's got a family, and he's looking out for his future ultimately. And then we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know the relationship between him, GJ Kinney. Maybe, I don't know, words were said, right? Or who knows? Who knows really what any of their truths are?
Yeah.
I don't know. The last thing I really want to leave on the note, because I think you had a great moment earlier when you're talking about just justice for the woman as a whole. That's really what's at stake here is, 3 lives were changed when whatever decision was made that night in Hawaii was made. And let's say Jayden de Laura is great and he goes on the field and he's blah, 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 but he still has this truth behind him. Your wife, your girlfriend, your daughter asks you, hey, what's going on with the team? I heard we're doing great. You got to explain now that this team is guided by this guy who has a history, and may or may not, I don't know. You see what I'm getting here? Like, it's a complex situation and it's hard. And it's something I think fans have to wrestle with early because it's going to be a narrative that continues to exist this entire season.
And
because now we're going to get those redemption stories, right? Like one person, Kef, me, Colton, Ish, Craven, whoever, right? A national reporter, Pete Thamel, is going to reach out to Texas State and get a one-on-one with Jayden and be like, how are you trying to move forward with your life at Texas State in the Sun Belt? And we're going to get one of those overarching stories. And then that judgment's going to come out and be like, what did we learn? And these are all things that are going to happen. Did nobody see this except us?
Yeah. And
like it's a lot bigger than what's going on the field. And regardless of who was right or who was wrong, it's a situation that happened and we're going to continue to deal with.
Jayden de Laura. Jayden, I want to start with you. A lot of dialogue around you off the field this offseason. You have not addressed that yet. Would you like to address it now?
Yeah. I kind of wrote out something. Kind of been really thinking about this since everything came out. So,
Put the mic up a little closer.
so I want to start off by saying I understand importance of the question that's been asked over these times, as well as the fact that as journalists and everything, everybody has a job to do. But just believe me that there's nothing I would like to do but clear my name if I could. Defend myself from what's being written. However, I hope you understand that I'm bound by the law to not discuss this matter at all. And I just do not intend to break the law. What I can say today is that I'm grateful for the University of Arizona for assessing the facts in this matter and allowing me to continue my education as a student athlete. I would also like to thank Thomas Otaki and Philip Miyoshi for correcting the misinformation that's been reported that stated that I pled guilty or was convicted of sexual assault, which is what was written. And it is a privilege to be the quarterback at the University of Arizona. I want to assure the Wildcat community that I'll continue to be responsible and respectful leader on the field, in the classroom and in life. And with that being said, I kind of would like to turn our focus to football now.
How long have we been going? Jeez, 40 fucking minutes.
Do we go and say that this is a 6-6 team again?
Well, it worked out pretty good with us the first time.
I don't know, man. It's one of those things where, like,
Welcome back. That was the
Right.
very hard first half of the show.
that was the first half.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we have much more to discuss. I think we've got maybe like 10 minutes, and we're just going to talk about.
He's got one more year of eligibility.
Who?
That was what.
Oh, Jayden.
Yeah.
Oh hell.
So like this is it. This is the year.
This is it.
Like this is
his
it.
Prove it year.
I don't think he has any more eligibility left here. So yeah, that's one of those things too. Yeah, he's got 1 year left of eligibility. So this is it. This is his last season of football. So
He banked it on us, and we banked it on him.
you picked the option of the guy that has like you don't.
We don't
There's
have anything
nothing
to
after
lose.
this, huh?
He doesn't have anything to lose.
That might be a problem. That could be a real double-edged sword. Nothing left to lose,
Yep.
brother.
That spring
God.
game's getting really interesting now because I doubt he's going to be made available to media very quickly, by the way, especially with pending litigation.
Chris Coots, brother, you gave me a lot of shit during the bowl game. That's fine. We're friends. You do a great job with Jakob. You and him are tight. I'm going to give you free advice. Don't make him available to the media. Do not make him available to the media. Pete Thamel calls. Do not make him available to the media. Because what you do not want this situation. You do not want this. Make this as low key as possible.
Headlines are coming, man. So whether Texas State makes him available or not, things are going to be written. It doesn't matter. It's going to be a question asked at press conferences. I hope. You hope. You hope. Well, even if it's not a thing that's known, right? Like it's still a thing that happened. Like just because it does
Here's the thing. If I still lived in North Dakota, I would make a challenge. If I still lived in North Dakota, I would challenge Colton, Kef, and you to ask questions and ask real hard questions. But now that I'm back in the building, I'll ask the hard questions.
All right.
I'll be the asshole.
Hard-nosed Andy.
That's like asking these questions. Because end of the day, right? Like there needs to be accountability. And Danfus knows that, and Don knows that, and GJ knows that. And if you want to leave on a positive note, you would say this, that GJ Kenny has, I want to say proven, but not really. Like he's done enough to say that.
Is he maxing out his Goodwill credit card right now with this?
He very much had a hot hand on the Goodwill on the goodwill roulette wheel, he had a very hot hand, and now he went to the poker table, took all the chips, and pushed in the middle, and said, "I'm gambling." Because look, there's a chance here that they win 10 games and they win the conference and they win their bowl game, and this is the best season in Texas State history outside of winning 2 national championships. Best FBS season. There's a real chance here that you have a redemption story and a 10-win football team and a bowl win and a great season. And there's also a chance that you're 6-6 or 5-7 starting in October. There's a chance for that too. And that this story doesn't go away. And in fact, there's a real shot here it could get a lot worse. Because if you go to litigation and you don't mediate a decision, and now all of a sudden you do go to court, and now we got a quarterback who is dealing with, granted, a 6-year ago incident, but you are having to have this guy potentially go to Honolulu before a bowl game. Because let's be honest here, there's a shot that happens. You're in a completely different ship. So he really did. This is a big gamble. This is a ginormous gamble. And if it
Casino
pays off,
Kenny to the max.
if it pays off, good on him. Good on him giving a guy another shot. But if it doesn't pay off, David Schultz and Kef are going to be talking on Twitter in a year from now, being like, "Hey, remember when Kenny decided to roll the dice on this guy?" ADs don't like guys who make those type of decisions.
Yeah.
ADs don't like guys who make their programs, put their universities in headlines connected to sexual assault. So I just
and that's what I'm saying too now, because for this entire season, whenever that little paragraph gets used, right, that Jayden de Laura was whatever involved or is awaiting adjudication or mediation in this pending sexual assault case that he picked up when he was a minor, it forever will be attached to Texas State now. Like, we're now a part of that story, recruited after he did not reach mediation in this settlement. That's the timeline for this shit,
Yeah. 5 years ago, let's say Spavital does this. What's the reaction? You go 2-10, and
what year is that?
Huh? I'm
What
saying
year?
like let's say
Texas
Texas State's coming off a 2-10 season instead of a 7-win season.
Well, if he had done that in 2019, it would have coincided with the Cleary stuff, actually. So,
Different reaction?
Not good. Yeah, I think pretty bad, because like a guy with an active, not an active, because they were trying to settle out of court pretty much immediately as soon as those allegations came out. 2021, they went through the whole court deal stuff and tried to reach a settlement. Ultimately, did not. The judge didn't agree with it. For all intents and purposes, this case would have been dismissed had that settlement, in the judge's opinion, been fair, but it wasn't. Which is crazy, because that's all NIL money. Isn't that nuts? And that's
it wrong that is what it's coming down to?
Yes. Sad.
You think I'm saying you think that the judge should have not looked at the NIL money?
No, I think it's fair, because that's what they make, right? They have to report it to the IRS, right?
Well, sometimes.
No, I mean, you should, because it's the school is giving you that money / private companies. So they're all going to make sure their T's are crossed and I's are dots,
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I think some of this NIL stuff is also going very much under the
I get your point.
No, but I'm just asking again. I'm just asking the questions here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that settlement amount will never be known either. The one that was offered and then the one that they end up reaching because of juvenile.
It's gonna get out.
You think so?
If it doesn't get resolved and they do go to trial, it will get out. They will let it be known how much they offered, because if it's a large number and the judge rejected it or the victim rejected it, then his camp will be like, well, we offered X amount of dollars. This is bullshit. And if it's a low amount, the judge and the victim will say, hey, they offered us, say, $10,000 or something like that. You know what I mean? Or a low, insultingly low amount. So, it'll get out. It always does.
Yeah. Ugh. I can't believe we had to talk about that for almost 40 minutes, but it's a lot of shit to consider, you know? And a lot of you guys, our listeners, had some varying opinions about it too. So I'm glad everybody was in a share circle online about this whole week. Because it's important to have these conversations, I think, as a fan base. Like, is this something we think is acceptable? Are we a win by any means team? Or was last year totally fine not having done any of this stuff?
I said this last year about Kendall Browse, is that there are lines in the sand that a fan base has to, like, you have to make some decisions. When Penn State went through their stuff, I was in middle schoolish, high schoolish, when the Sandusky information came out, right? And I remember thinking to myself, how can anybody be a Penn State fan? Like, how can anybody be a Penn State fan when this happens, right? And there was conversations that I had with friends and family later that was like, well, you don't understand that there's like lineages here. There's like decades of rooting for Penn State and rooting for the Nittany Lions. And just because this guy does something that's like extremely awful,
Heinous.
that doesn't mean, yeah, heinous does not, that does not change my fandom. That does not change my loyalty to the school. Baylor, similar situation with Art Briles. Heinous acts occurring. Heinous acts. But you have to be able to separate the university that you grew up with, the football team that you grew up loving, and the actions of an individual or individuals. And in this situation, I think to myself, as a Bobcat fan, as arguably I would say, what, top 10 Bobcat fan? I think Tom Madden has me beat, but I don't think there's many others.
I agree.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
The thing about it too, being a college football person, I guess we can say we're personalities. I consider myself half of a writer because this is not my full-time job, but I like dedicating some time to the craft still. But it's the thing about college is that you're reckoning the entire time with like youth, you know, and these guys like have not severely damaged their own reputations and lives, but the woman that's involved is forever changed by this, whether she gets more money or not, it's still something that happened in her life, allegedly, because, we weren't there either,
It's
in
hard.
Hawaii.
It's hard too because like Jayden is only 23.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying too. He's younger than us. So it's like this thing has been following him. Now he's gotten media training specifically on how to address this question and how to it's been such a journey for him. Like you can really honestly hope he's here for change and to prove that, he can be a better both player and man at the end of all this. And I guess
podcast.
And I guess for Kenny too, like let's say TJ left and we didn't immediately have some sort of a solution, he would be vilified online too for not having some sort of an answer. I'm just not saying this guy.
No, he wouldn't.
Answer.
No, he wouldn't.
You,
No.
You think people would like trust the process and stuff like that? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that I would have a much different opinion of GJ Kenny if these happen 24 hours difference, that TJ Finley leaves and that de Laura comes in versus it being flipped. I have a completely different opinion because Jayden de Laura was going to be out there. He was going to be out there no matter what.
He's going to be at some other school eventually.
Who is?
Jayden de Laura. I don't think he would go. I don't think he would go into in this portal cycle. I don't think he would have lasted. Like he would have gone somewhere else if it wasn't us.
Before Texas State.
Yes. Anywhere else. Other options were clearly presented.
Do you think 24 hours difference was going to be the difference maker?
No. I don't think we needed to make the decision now either. I mean, we made one fucking way late in the summer and worked out fine for us. Could have had PJ and maybe talked Malik back into coming over. I don't know.
I would like to point out that in 2022, Arizona beat North Dakota State by 3 points, and arguably one of the best games of de Laura's career at Arizona. 20 of 28 with the touchdown.
I remember when they almost beat Washington. It was like a single possession game too. In that
yes, they lost by 10 to Washington in 2022. He had 400 yards and 4 TDs. Yeah, you can make a case. You can make a case that was his best game. And he threw for 400 yards.
Yeah, that was a different Washington
that season. He almost threw for 500 yards against Colorado.
That's crazy.
484 yards and 6 TDs.
And just proves that Colorado had zero semblance of a defense.
In 2022, yeah. Tough time. That was before Deion, though.
Well, shit. Well, that's why you listen to fucking Squarin Around, because we give you shit like this. Yeah, I really
See us
don't
at
want
the basketball game. Come say hi.
Yeah, I really don't want to talk about anything else. I think we should just leave this podcast like that, right? What do you
I'm
think?
good with that.
I think this is an important issue, and we talked about it, and yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's what my therapist tells me at the end of all of our sessions. We'll see what happens. Doesn't really fill me with confidence, but it's something you say for sure.
Eat them up.
We ain't got no badges. We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges.
Better not come any closer.
Thanks for listening. New episodes out every Thursday. Follow the boys on Twitter. Eat 'em up. Eat 'em up.